morning, everybody. This is Coach King, Pat King here. And as you can see, my partner, Ron Heklinski, is home tonight. He decided to come up with a case of vertigo. So he's home flat on his back. So you guys can all feel sorry for him, I guess. But our guest tonight, Holy Cross coach Mike McBride's here. I used to coach with him, and I said, hey, Coach, you want to come in a half hour early? And you just sit down the whole show. So welcome.
Big shoes to replace with Heck out.
Oh, my. Well, you know that. And normally he runs the thing. So
so we're just kind of winging it then.
We're winging this. We usually just play off of whatever he says. So we're here again at Bar Louie. They're our hosts tonight, again, as they have been since early August. We appreciate everything they've done for us. We've got a little sign that says we'll work for food. So that's kind of how that works. You just don't see us sitting out there at the corner of 933 in Cleveland or any place like that. Although that might be, if it's available sometime, that might happen. But John Overmeyer is with us again tonight, as he is on air every Monday and Tuesday nights when we're over here. So we appreciate that. One of the other people I wanted to mention here is we're kind of doing sponsors is my daughter's Southern Knit Studio. We mentioned that. I had a chance to see her this weekend. She was up to Indianapolis for nursing. Matter of fact, I was at Marian University this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. They had graduation in the gym and they did have the banners were exposed where you could see them.
Yeah, they're new gym.
The new gym,
yes.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
It's nice. You know, it's about 15 rows up on both sides, and it's got a huge balcony in the end zone. I'm sure you've been down there. All conference 3 years down there in the 90s?
One.
I was trying to help.
I
was trying to help.
If we weren't taping this, I would say 3, but
okay.
I don't want to go on record
get somebody
with false information.
The fact check.
You got to remember, we are streaming this live, and it is also being recorded, so it can be double dipped.
Tomorrow when we put the tape, we can say yes. How's that?
Yeah, that'll work.
You played for Coach Grimes?
I did. I played for Coach Grimes. Yeah.
So when we went down there, when I was your assistant a few years back, and we went to, I think we played in a holiday tourney or something down there, a 2-day tournament. He was still coaching there, right? Was he still the coach?
He
then?
Was not. He had retired, and it was Todd Licklider that replaced him that we were coaching against.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's funny. I should have remembered that because Todd and I played together at Butler. So we're both the same age. We played against each other in high school when his dad was the coach at North Central and so forth. So, just check. But my daughter has Southern Knit Studios real quick. Throwing a shameless plug for her. It is Mother's Day coming up here shortly. And she said, hey, if anybody wants to make orders on blankets, they need to do that like ASAP because I've got to get those packaged and get them shipped, to the people so they can get them before the weekend.
So I need to be doing that soon so I have something for my wife on
Sundays.
What you're saying?
What I was going to say is while you're listening to us, because, we do have faces for radio here, you can go right above the picture there, and there's a little box. Studio, you can click on that and still listen to us, and you can do a little shopping. I think there's 3 different level blankets. She's got like baby blankets for newborns. She's got a little couch blanket for you, and then she's got a big blanket that goes on the end of the bed, and all different prices, different colors, and so forth. So something to look at. It's an easy present, guys. It's a quick point and click. Especially for your mom, wife, whatever you think it might be. You got graduations coming up. Might be good to send somebody off to college with one of those as well. So, John, one of the things I was going to mention with you is once you got this title of SID at Clay High School, the weather kind of threw a wrench in some plans today, didn't it?
Yeah, we had a lot of events planned. We had a tennis match scheduled with Marian, but the court, it rained just enough to put a little bit of slickness on the court, so we had to cancel that. We got our softball team on a bus, headed over to Bago Township to play Jimtown in what was a huge North-South division game. We got over there, we got warmed up, and then it got canceled. So now the kids are on their way back, and that'll be made up a week from Wednesday now. We do have baseball going on in golf, but those are my nightmares when we get kids somewhere and it gets canceled. Then I got to get all kinds of information out to people. Sorry, we're not playing tonight.
Right.
All the parents were over there, so we got a lot of upset parents.
And that's just your school.
That's just my school, yeah.
That's going on.
There's a lot of other cancellations
going
today,
on
too.
everywhere today. And, it might have made 60 today when we were after yesterday's nice weather that we had. We've got a couple good games today, by the way. I believe spring sports, you've got baseball and softball going on the same time. Penn and St. Joe are playing right now. Is that right?
In baseball, tied at 3 in the 7th inning, so that may go extras. They're in the 6th over at the North Field. St. Joe trails Penn 1-0 in softball. That'll be for the lead in the NIC overall, as well as the East-West division. So two good games going on there.
Yeah, and the softball, if you remember, we had Earl Keith in here a couple of weeks ago. St. Joe's girls softball, I guess there isn't a boys softball, so St. Joe's softball won the state in 3A, moved up to 4A, and they're unbeaten, and they're getting ready. Like I said, we were playing Penn today, and Penn was in the state finals as well. So you've got now they're both 4A, and I think they're in different sectionals. Is that true?
They are correct, yes.
So that's
St. Joe's in the Mishawaka
thing.
sectional, Penn's in somebody else's.
And then I saw also
sectional.
today that Mishawaka's softball is doing very, very well in the NLC, and they're in that same sectional as St. Joe's. So softball, Northern Indiana softball, as Earl Keith mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is very, very healthy right now.
Well, it is. You've got St. Joe in 4A. You've got Penn, who's really good. Mishawaka, Brian Miller's done a great job over at Mishawaka. They're going to be a factor in their own sectional. You look at some of the smaller schools, Clay, I know they're 4-4. They haven't beaten anybody in the bigger school division, but they lead the what you would call the Southern Division or the North-South Division with games with Jimtown and Riley left. So a lot of good softball here in the state. We know how good New Prairie is. New Prairie is now number 1 in 3A this week. So we got a new number 1 in the 3A. And New Prairie's playing very well after winning a big tournament down at Twin Lakes over the weekend.
And here we are talking a lot of local information here. I know the Indianapolis schools are still in the top 10, and most of them. I think I saw Center Grove's boys or Center Grove's baseball. I think is number 1. Yep. But maybe that'll lead us into our next topic, something we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And Mike, you can help us out a little bit. We're talking about high school teams changing conferences.
It's wild.
Yes, it is.
It's like it just trickled straight down from major college athletics and that reshuffling, and now it seems like everyone in high school across the state is shuffling around. You don't know what the conferences are going to look like and how matchups will play out.
And if you think about it, it doesn't really have anything to do with class sports, because it's regular season. Yeah. And it involves all the sports, and whether it's tennis or soccer or softball or baseball. But the one thing I think, one of the common denominators, I was reading a couple articles, they said that most of it is small school football and soccer. And I know up in our area here, the area between, let's say, Kokomo up here and everything in between a lot of those small 2A and 3A schools, they're starting to shuffle because of football. And some of them don't play football, they play soccer only, and they're starting to get some conferences that way. Others are smaller school football where they're finding out they're tired of getting their brains beat in. For example, I know North Miami in the TRC is one of the few 1A schools. They're in there with 2A, 3A, and even a couple 4A schools in the Three Rivers. I don't think it's finalized yet, but they're talking about North Miami, for example, jumping to the Hoosier North, and that would be over with Winnemac and Caston and Culver and schools at Pioneer, schools over there north of Logansport a little bit. And Lewis Cass has already moved to the TRC, and they're probably going to take North Miami. They actually took Tippy Valley's place. And then the big one around in this area would be Logansport. We've had the movement in the North Central Conference. We found out a couple weeks ago, Harrison and McCutcheon were basically asked not to come back to the North Central Conference because they win too much.
You're
winning too much, so you can't play.
You got to go. We're done with you.
But I think the notes I had a couple weeks ago is I think Harrison has won the All Sports Trophy like every year they.
Wow. Where are those schools going? Has that been determined?
They are going. John, help me. Aren't they going? I don't know if that's been determined yet.
Those two haven't been determined. We know Logan's going to the Hoosier to replace Lewis Cass.
I thought somebody said they might be going back down to the Sagamore.
I'll try to look it up for you guys.
Which is maybe Danville and not Crawfordsville, but some of the Brownsburg, Danville, maybe that, or which is still a drive
that's
for
still
them.
They're
going to have to get on 65 and head south, I think is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But maybe Frankfurt's involved in that conference as well. That's a good one we'd have to check. You guys at home, if you want to get on the internet, you might look at some of the old Twitters. You might be able to get on the box that we joke about and type some information in for us there. But I know Logansport now, the next story is, and we kept saying Logansport was kind of set out on an island because they're in the western part of the North Central Conference. Now you're losing, and they've been playing. They were playing Harrison and McCutcheon even before they were in the conference 15 years ago. You still have Lafayette Jeff, who's going to be sitting over there by themselves, but now they're talking about Logansport possibly dropping out of the North Central Conference, and they're one of the original teams that started in the NCC, and they're talking about moving to the Hoosier and taking Lewis Cass's place in the Hoosier Conference with Northwestern, Tipton Western, BC, LCC.
So they would immediately become the biggest school in that conference.
With that, because they're
thinking right.
Are they? Logansport's a 4A school, aren't they?
They are a 4A school.
And
they play 4A basketball, 4A football, 4A baseball, softball, all that stuff. Yeah.
I didn't mention any 4As. Tipton's 2A, aren't they?
Tipton, I believe, is 2. Yes.
Yeah, they're 2A. Yeah.
And LCC's a 1. Mm-hmm. So now granted, they're a pretty good 1A.
Yeah.
But Twin Lakes, I think, is a 3A.
They're 3A,
because they come up here for the South Bend Washington basketball regional. Yep. So, yeah, that would be, again, Logansport's kind of, they're not good enough for one conference and they're too big for the other.
That'll be interesting. The Hoosiers are really good athletics conference.
Yeah, that is a good conference, that's for sure. So, and again, who knows, that's going to, that you're going to leave the North Central Conference with now down to 6 or 7 teams if that happens, because Tech's leaving the conference as well. So I think that's one of those stay tuned situations. So lots of movement on that.
And there's been a lot of talk, too, about all the changes we're making in the NIC with Bremen, Glenn, and Jimtown all leaving, and, what's that going to do? And don't ask Greg Homnucky that question. That's just a thorn in his side, because we've done so much. We've done so much for them, and they're going to abandon us. It's like, well, just make it an 18 conference. Well, we can't do that with football. Blah blah blah.
Well, now, the Hoosier North. I was looking at some stuff too. They're actually talking about Argus leaving the Hoosier Plains, and so that conference was set up as a soccer conference.
Exactly.
That's a soccer conference with the Christian schools over toward Goshen, Lakeland Christian, Bethany Christian. And those people, and then I think they threw South Bend Career Academy in there because they didn't know what else to do with them. So, but see, they don't play. They're the only team that doesn't play soccer. They're in there strictly for the basketball part of it. They're even talking about maybe South Central going to that Hoosier North with Culver and everybody. And then it also mentioned, with the way things were going, is that did Knox and LaVille make a good decision leaving that conference and joining up with Tippy Valley and those people. So, like you said, there's a lot going on.
It's definitely shuffling constantly.
And a lot of it has to do with the dynamics of the schools. The enrollments, are changing. Obviously, we see the South Bend schools are not the big schools anymore. They're, most of them are now 3As in their sports. The North Central Conference schools are big 3s or small 4s. When you sit there and you're looking at, there was a time when Muncie Central was a 3A school. And Newcastle was a 3A school. That just doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't seem right. It just, selfishly, it seems like Indiana high school basketball is really good when the North Central Conference is really good.
And unfortunately, it's been 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it's like the dying blue bloods, it seems like.
Now, one of the things we talked about last week, too, was down at Floyd Central, the sad story we had down with them involved with their former coach involved with all the issues there at the Louisville situation, where here's a coach's son that's involved in the shooting, and it just showed you that the gun situation, without getting political, and the shooting in Allen, Texas, this over the weekend. I mean, I know a lot of people that live down there from when I was in Plano, so it's not a gun issue; it's a mental health situation.
Yeah, the Sturgeon family, I'm from that area.
Sure.
And actually, we referenced me playing at Marion. When I played there, Coach Sturgeon was an assistant for Royce Waltman at University of Indianapolis. And couldn't be a better family, couldn't be a better mom and dad, great family. And by all accounts, until that tragic morning, was a very good young man. So, there are people down there obviously still trying to heal from that.
Well, and the thing I remember was The boy was a freshman, I think, when I was still there at Madison, and when we played Floyd Central, he had paperwork and stuff because he had been out because of a head injury, and he was coming back, and they had a protective helmet that he was going to wear. It was a black like rubber helmet, maybe you see in soccer or whatever it was. I mean, but they had to have all that paperwork and get it approved through the IHSA that it was safe for him to wear that. But he wore it. I mean, I've got game film still tucked away in one of my shoe boxes down in the basement. And I told my son, you played against him.
Wow.
So that was as a freshman. So I think they did say that his family had made a decision to go ahead and donate his brain for the CTE scans and basically go through the evaluations that basically what your pro football players are doing with the brain injuries and see if there is something indeed good with it. So anyway, John, we talked about baseball. We've talked about new topic, and then you can look at some of our questions too. But,
sure.
And then we're gonna start drilling Coach here on some stuff. This is one for Heck, and I wish he was here. South Bend St. Joe decides they're going to retire the nickname Indians. And Heck's a St. Joe guy. So I'm sure we would get a lot of feedback on this. And again, this is one of these political things. I definitely have my opinions. I think it's total foolishness. I was a history teacher. So again, this is one of those things, you teach people history, you don't go cancel the history. And I mean, this is an Indian area, this, from the French and Indian Wars. I mean, look at the names of places. LaSalle was a Frenchman. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? St. Joe, and the Indians, that's a cultural thing for the South Bend area, the Potawatomi Indians and everything like that. And it's just amazing that now all of a sudden it's not appropriate. I've got my opinions, but again, I wasn't part of the decision making on that. So.
Well, and what I find interesting too is, okay, you decided to get rid of it, but you're going to start a new school year without a mascot or a nickname, just St. Joe. And then they're going to have a determination sometime during the school year of what they're going to be.
And they'll form 23
Why don't you just
committees.
state, okay, if you're going to get rid of the name Indians, at least start with that and then change it. That's what Goshen did when they did the same thing. They stayed with the Redskins to at least start the school year until they had the vote, and they became Red Hawks. No problem. St. Joe's not doing that. See, our banner's falling down too.
Oh.
It just went. That's all right. It's going to be one of those nights.
We'll get the commercial. We'll take
but yeah,
care of it.
I think that there's two things here. One is the Potawatomis. Obviously, maybe they don't want that name used. I don't know. Or because the Potawatomis are now involved in the gambling industry because they have Four Winds Casino and Hotel. They run all of that. Is that a Catholic value? Probably not. And I'm wondering if this committee kind of weighed on that and says, well, we respect the Indian nation, but they're into this gambling. We don't want to, have our kids learn about all this kind of stuff and, go to the casino and roll dice. And, and one of our employees works there, as you know.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that was part of it too, that just never came out in the statement from the school.
Well, again, we weren't part of the decision making, so
I think it's ridiculous.
We'll just go with it. It's going to be great for the sporting goods people and uniform people because
get BSN on the phone. They might have been behind this whole thing.
Yeah, it might be a conspiracy with BSN. You just never know. But I agree. Hit us with a couple questions here. We've got? I know you've got 4 or 5 questions, and Mike can help me out with some of this.
Well, we'll start with
some of it's baseball.
But we'll start with a basketball question to warm you guys up. All right. This is a question that comes in from the great state of Utah. What do you think about LeBron's kid Bronny committing to USC? There's a lot of things. He's not that good. And does he go for a year because of the NIL and then go pro? Or what do you guys think about his decision to go play at USC in the Pac-12?
For such a humongous name and brand in the sport, that was a very quiet recruitment. Obviously being orchestrated behind the scenes. Obviously, you wish the kid the best and hope it works out, and it'd be a neat story for LeBron to play with his son one day in the NBA. But if I'm USC's coaches, I'm not sure that's one I want to mess with. I don't know. I don't know if we want to take on that problem, that dynamic, but that's for them to figure out.
Yeah. If he's not in the starting lineup on day one, because every TV camera is going to be at every practice. Starting probably yesterday.
Yeah, and if I'm USC's coaches, I can answer to the camera a lot better than I can probably LeBron. LeBron starts, and who knows if he would do this, but he does like to orchestrate things. So
yeah, he's been involved in a couple coaching changes out there.
Coaching changes. He's played GM a couple times, so he does like the behind the scenes moves.
Right, he does work behind the scenes. That's for sure. Now, will that recruitment bring in more money for NIL for other players on the team? Most definitely.
Yeah.
So is it good for the program? Probably. Now, we'll just have, if it plays out and look at the wins and losses,
Yeah, well, I just, by all accounts, he's a very good player in his own right. So hopefully he gets evaluated and judged on his own merits and not compared to his father, because that would just be, really unfair for the kid and for the program. So
right.
you expect him to walk in and do for USC what Dad did for the Cavaliers, Heat, and Lakers. So.
Right, and this is not the first father-son, situation. I'm right off the top. You've got Steph Curry, you've got Klay Thompson, both on the same team. They're at Golden State. Their dads played.
Yeah.
Kobe's dad played. We can go on and on. Just in different times. The only one I can really think of where they played at the same time was baseball with Ken Griffey and Ken. By then, but I think they were out in Seattle together once upon a time. So, that was a good question. We don't have an answer.
Okay.
We do, but I don't know if there is such a thing as a right answer.
Now, this kind of leads into our next question that just came in a couple of minutes ago. Is the NIL going to help or hinder college athletics and allowing kids to get all this money and all this fame and all this kind of stuff? Is it going to be a hindrance, or is this going to be a help to colleges for years to come? That's a tough question.
I could talk. That's why I brought the college.
Yeah, well, that's what, hey, I just relaying questions I'm getting.
Now, the only thing I could say to maybe help bail him out on whatever he says is there's a big difference between big college and small college right there. So that would be a start. How much NIL money you guys got rolling in?
We're still waiting to see that first deal come through. No, it's. The landscape has changed so dramatically, so quickly in regards to NIL that I think this same conversation in 2 years will be different than what we're having now. 2 years ago we weren't even discussing. We didn't know what NIL was.
And there was a lot of the things that are going on now was illegal.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I talked to one of my former players, Jimmy King, that played at Michigan. I said, Jimmy, think about what's going on now. And if that would have been you guys back in the 90s with your black socks and long pants and everything else that you guys did, shaved heads or whatever else that you guys did, and that you would have got a nickel for everything that was sold, you guys would have done pretty. You might have stayed all 4 years.
They would have certainly benefited tremendously from it. But it's just so dramatically different, and no one seemingly doesn't have the answer because it's uncharted. So again, I think it'll be interesting to see. You hear numbers that are thrown out for different players and what different programs maybe across the board are doing for their teams, but how sustainable is that? Is there really eventually there's got to be a return on investment from the person
right.
or the company putting that money in there.
I totally agree. And the one thing I was thinking about when this first started, it was the whole idea of maybe the local car dealer, having one of the local ball player go stand, next to a couple cars and say, hey, come buy cars from us. And they might drop him a couple dollars or something to help pay his tuition. And it's those days are long gone. That never happened. If that happened, it progressed to something else. That's for sure. To the point now you've got alumni, you've got former players that are organized and they're putting money into a pot to help the athletic departments. I mean, it seems like there's no rules. It's the wild, wild west where it's just you can do whatever you want. And there's no supervision to it. It's just whoever's got the deepest pocket.
Yeah, I wonder, and I don't know that it'll ever come to this, but it'd be an interesting byproduct. When do the institutions say, okay, you're receiving all this NIL money, we're not giving you a scholarship. You now make enough money you can pay to come to school, and we'll use that scholarship for a traditional student that needs it.
I think you're exactly right.
When does it ever turn to that? Obviously, you don't think it would in high major athletics, but mid major, athletics that sometimes are hurting for budget, hurting for revenue, losing money on athletics at times. When do they just say, okay, you have the ability to go make money, make it. You're going to pay to go to school.
Mm-hmm. And you see, we're talking your big sports. So now let's immediately jump. For example, we're down the street here from Notre Dame. How about lacrosse? How about soccer? How about baseball, softball? How much are those people making money? I mean, is college baseball. If college baseball players are going to be able to make money in college, why would they want to go to the draft and leave early and go play minor league baseball and play single A, double A baseball, get on a chartered bus and go from South Bend to Grand Rapids in a bus or wherever they're going in the middle of the night when they can stay at Notre Dame or whatever college they're located and make money? And as Heck says, they got 3 hots and a cot. And and their girlfriend's right there, and they can still go classes and get their work done. I think I just saw earlier today that Justin Fields went back to school and graduated here in the last couple of days over at Ohio State, right?
Yep.
So he walked through graduation. So, let's say he had enough money to go, the NIL. Let's say he stayed long enough to graduate.
So. Well, you're seeing a lot in high major basketball. You're seeing a lot of kids stay because of NIL instead of going pro, and those at-risk, even late first round, second round, or undrafted kids, or like Hunter Dickinson, stayed because he's going to make more money via NIL than he would had he gone to the NBA.
Well, and how about Zach Edey coming up? He's declared, but he's left the door open where he can return, and obviously Painter's not going to shut the door on him if he wants to come back.
No, that's a point. Oscar Tshiebwe at Kentucky, it's obviously impacting bigs more than some other positions because the NBA just doesn't value those guys as much anymore.
Right.
So they can make, a lot more staying another year or two in college than what they would if they went undrafted and maybe had to go overseas.
Well, and I'm sure you would agree that had a lot to do with the way the tournament went this year with all the quote upsets. That they really weren't upsets, and we've seen that here recently. Think about Loyola Chicago the last 5 to 6 years. They got to the Final Four one year with a bunch of juniors and seniors because they were beating teams with the one and dones.
Yeah.
And that trend now, why did those guys stay? Because basically that was their only choice.
Yeah.
So now you've got guys that have those options, and as you said, guys that it's not only late first round nowadays isn't even a guarantee that you're going to make the team in the NBA. So do I stay another year?
Yeah. And being able to keep, that's one thing. I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent. One thing, Florida Atlantic's run was so amazing, but what they've done since that run's over, to me, is even more amazing. They've kept that team together. They haven't been, that no one's come in and poached them. So obviously institutionally they've had to do some things with NIL to make it worthwhile, but that speaks to great testament to the culture and fabric of that program, that the kids want to be there and they're not, jumping to one of the high majors right away.
And I would imagine if we were close enough and had enough time to talk, it wasn't from lack of trying, because I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm sure that the phone was ringing a lot to those kids, saying, "Hey, come here. We got this waiting for you."
Yeah, I think if I were coaching in that position, the first NIL deal I would orchestrate would be with a cell phone company and get all my guys new phones and new numbers.
Yeah.
So that in the middle of that run,
block them.
Yeah. So in the middle of that run, they're not getting hit up by every every agent or middleman in the country.
I know, and it's great that you're here because see, those are some of the little things that you see that us high school guys just don't have a chance to see. John, you got anything else for us on questions for basketball?
That's it on the basketball questions tonight.
Do you want to hit us with some baseball ones right now?
Yes, I do. Let me,
because
before we do
that won't take very long.
No, I know. I do want to update you on a softball score.
Okay.
They've gone to the 6th over at the Northfield. St. Joe now leads Penn 4-1. Riley Zakay hit a 2-run home run, and Maya Newton an RBI single that gives them a 4-1 lead. So Penn's got a lot of work to do if they want to come back and beat St. Joe.
Okay.
That's in softball.
That's softball.
This
okay.
This is a baseball question that comes from Mike in Chicago.
Well, Mike in Chicago, bear with you. Got two basketball people here that like to watch baseball. I'll leave it at that.
And the question is very simple. What's wrong with the White Sox? Not talking Cubs, we're talking White. He's a big White Sox fan, apparently.
We need my son. My son, Scott, start typing.
Yeah.
He's down in Dallas right now, still training a couple more days with American Airlines. He's the White Sox guy. He just said they've got some players that they thought were going to perform that have just, as a group, are underperforming, and nobody knows why right now.
Yeah, I can offer zero insight into that. I'm sorry to our guy in Chicago asking that question. Hopefully he sent it to some baseball experts as well.
He needs to have Heck here, and maybe we can hit that one next week when Heck's healthy, because I don't think they're going to solve that problem between now and next Tuesday.
This one is a high school question. This is a local question. It comes from a local fan. What does Clay's closing next year mean for South Bend Community School Corporation sports? Is it going to be done? Are they going to have to do some revamping? What do you guys think about South Bend schools having to revamp sports once they close Clay after next year?
Well, you might be the best one to answer that because you're there every day. First of all, they're going to put all the Clay stuff in mothballs and take it downtown to the Alumni Association.
No, they're not. That is not going to happen. No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. What we're trying to do with some of the athletic stuff, we've had a lot of alumni who have reached out that want a lot of that stuff. So we're going to wait till next year. So if you're a Clay alumni, just wait. We're going to sort through all that stuff, and then we're going to see what we might want to give away. We had a lot of stuff in there from the years.
You got the pictures from the '94 team.
That's
or
still
those,
up there.
Those life-size people
they're
are up
still
on the
up
wall.
there. Yeah, and we got the state championship trophy still in the trophy case when you walk in the front door.
Yeah.
We got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, what are you going to do with it?
We don't want to put it downtown, that's for sure. I'm not sure at least that's what we're thinking about in the athletic department.
Well, and one of the things everybody's got an opinion, but like Michigan City, of course they consolidated, but they've got that nice lobby where they've got that history of all
Rogers and Elston,
of everything. It's in that one lobby there in the end zone of the gym with a history of both schools, which I really like. And I don't know if that's something. But what would they do? Would they have to do that at Adams or Riley or Washington to do that? I don't know.
Well, that was the problem they had when they renovated Adams back in the early 2000s. A lot of that stuff from when I was in school is long gone.
Yeah, I know. I was
and
there.
And as
they're still looking for it.
And as an Adams alum, I'm not happy about that because there was, 1982 was the last time a South Bend school won the NIC All Sports Trophy. That was my senior year. And that banner is probably up in the Eagle's Nest, and it stays there. But where's the rest of the stuff?
Yeah, if you look
I'm not happy about that.
You look at the wall up there at Adams, all those red banners, they stop at like 1982.
Yeah, that was my senior year, and Penn's won it ever since.
Right. The one thing I would think as far as Clay, right now, all that's going to be decided. First of all, why are they going to have a freshman class next year? You're going to let freshmen go there for one?
Not maybe. I know.
To me, I think that's something. Okay, that's over. The kids that are at your school right now, the freshmen and sophomores, they need to get out of there now while they have a choice.
And a lot of them are, and that's kind of the concern when you flip it over to athletics. Are we even going to have enough kids next year to field teams?
I would say no.
Our football coach is very concerned because with 4 classes in there, we only had 25 kids out there.
They didn't have enough last year.
We already had enough last year, as you know. We did some of their games, and he's very concerned about having sports next year.
I would think they'd keep the thing open. I would tell the seniors, sure, stay. Seniors, you guys are juniors now.
Yeah, most of the juniors are going to stay for 1 year because they can graduate.
It'll be the last graduating group. But I'd say that's it. I mean, the rest of them, I would be encouraging them to go now because And like they said, what is that? 60% of the kids that are in Clay District right now already go to Adams.
Yep.
And the other 40 live out by me. They can go to Washington, or if they want to get on the transpo, they can go down to Riley. But most of the kids at Clay go to Adams already. So I would go get in line now, because Adams is kind of got a waiting list to get in.
It's already over full.
Yeah.
And they can't get in there right now.
And what are they going to do with all those kids? They're going to have to tell some of them, you got to go.
And next Wednesday night, we're doing a freshman information night. So we're going to have the potential incoming freshmen come in for a program in the auditorium, and then we're going to have an open house in the gym, and you can come in and see what we offer at Clay High School.
What are they going to offer?
They're putting every department out there. We have to have an athletic table out there that has information about. I'm thinking, okay.
Well, you shouldn't have any trouble getting playing time next year if you're an athlete.
Well, and I haven't really had a chance to sit down and talk to Doug Barnbrook. Of course, one of your former players is the head coach at Clay,
right,
about what's going to happen next year. And some of his kids, his juniors are going to come back because they've got one more year. But after that, they said they're not sure any of these younger kids are going to stay. They're going to go somewhere else where they might be able to get some playing time. I don't know.
There's no reason for them to. All right, well, hey, why don't you take a break?
We will do that.
And we'll take a break, and I'll see if I can put our sign back up here, and then we'll come back here. We're going to talk a little NBA basketball, and then we might jump back. I've got some coaching changes for the high schools. Well, let's talk a little bit about the NBA. We've got games tonight. I think we're at games like 4 and 5 now. And I think yesterday with Miami and New York, 2 days ago, they played tonight in Miami again. Game 3 the other day, New York, Brunson had 20, Hart had 15, RJ had 14, Julius Randle had 10. Miami took care of them pretty good. It was 105-86. It was one of those ugly ones. And it's amazing how you can have close games, and if one of them gets away from them, they just pull the plug.
Yeah, the score variances in some of these playoff games are just wild. You look from game 2 to game 3 with the Warriors and Lakers being, I think it was like a 27-point loss.
Yeah, you just
turns
wonder
into
how that happens.
30-point win the next night. So, yeah, those are wild. Miami is obviously really, really just tough, mentally tough, physically tough. And it's a good thing for New York to have to go through. I think New York might have the youngest roster in the NBA, so having to get beaten up and learn, is ultimately going to be good for those guys because of how young they are.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's just been playing very well. He had 28. Max, is it Strus?
Strus.
Yeah, Strus had 19. Kyle Lowry had 14 off the bench. But the one thing I noticed with those two teams, how many big school kids there were. Both teams have got kids from Kentucky. Both teams have kids from Villanova. Both teams have people from Duke. A lot of them were one and dones that are now 4 or 5 years into their careers. And you just wonder, I always wonder, what would have happened if they would have been playing in the 80s when they stayed, playing in the Big East and been 4 years of college, how good college basketball would have been.
Yeah, you can't watch a playoff game, it seems like, without seeing 2 or 3 Kentucky guys
and people always complaining about Calipari, all his one and dones, but I tell you, he got them ready for the pros, that's for sure. Game 5, tomorrow night, Boston and Philadelphia are tied 2-2. That was the overtime game last night, and I didn't see the game in live, but I saw the replays. What was Boston thinking there at the end? They didn't even get a shot.
No, and they had timeouts, and that's always a tough thing as a coach to decide. Do you let your guys go, or do you call a timeout, set something up? And obviously, hindsight's always 20/20. So, if Boston scores that possession, Joe Mazzulla looks like a genius. Mm-hmm. They don't, so he looks like he didn't have a clue.
Well, and Marcus Smart made a basket, but it was after the lights went off. But Philadelphia had, Harden had 42, Embiid had 34, and they were talking about Embiid's, the MVP of the league. When's he going to go off and just take over in a ball game? It hadn't happened yet. Harden's been playing well, but he's also been known to disappear in previous playoffs. Too.
So he's been really extreme. The 2 wins, he's 40-plus points a game. The 2 losses, I think he maybe had a total of 27, 28.
Yeah.
And Boston's kind of playing with fire. They're probably better than Philadelphia, and they've proven it over the course of the year. But you let guys hang around, especially with a guy like Doc Rivers who can, like he's been around the block more times than.
But now it's a best of 3 series because they're tied.
Yes.
So they, Tatum had 24, Jaylen Brown had 23, and again we're looking at here's Duke, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Arizona State, Kentucky names. Tyrese Maxey had 14 for Philadelphia. So they play tomorrow night in Boston, and if that one goes 7 games, the last game's in Boston. So I don't know if that the home court really hasn't been the advantage that it's been when we were growing up. It seemed like you'd lose 2, you'd win 2. And it'd be just kind of like this, a best of 3. You just kept going back and forth, and the home team definitely had the advantage.
Yeah, it seems like the home team in Game 1 just has not been on edge as much as you would think. I think there have probably been more Game 1 road wins this year than I can really recall in recent memory.
And we always talk about the fact that if those first 2 games, if you can get a split. We've got a game now. Out west, Denver and Phoenix are 2-2, and they played last night 129-124. Kevin Durant has 36. Devin Booker had 36. But the key there was that Landry Shamet comes out from Wichita State, came off the bench. He was 5 of 8 from threes and had 19 points for Phoenix. Nikola Jokic had 53 and still gets beat.
Yeah, that's he is such an anomaly how he plays.
And physically he doesn't look he looks like he doesn't look like a basketball player.
No, he doesn't.
At least not your American style basketball player.
He's not the traditional, he's not a prototype athlete. Looks like he should be in a back room boxing ring, not
something
sitting out
like
on
that.
The court.
Oh, I know. And the thing was, he scores 53, but all they've talked about today was the little scuffle and the little situation they had in the corner with the owner. Just happened to be the owner of the other team.
Yeah.
And what I thought, if you watch that careful enough, one of the Phoenix players was laying on the ground. Jokic was trying to get the ball so they could get it inbounds and go. And to an advantage, and I wonder if the owner knew that and he grabbed the ball on purpose so they couldn't take it and go.
Yeah, and it's a new owner who just really likes camera.
He likes basketball and he likes the camera. You're exactly right. And then the series I think everybody was looking for was Golden State and the Lakers. I think they play tonight yet, and it's just Game 4 for them. Here's the Lakers who, a month ago, weren't even in the playoffs. They were like the 12 or 13 seed, and Barkley and Shaq were just making fun of them. And now here they are a month later, and they've got Golden State 2-1. Now, granted, we've got, the 5 seed and the 7 or 8 seed playing each other. But the Lakers are playing well. Anthony Davis had 25. LeBron had 21. And that was one of those blowouts, 127-90, won by 30 in L.A., but that put them up 2-1 because, like you said, they got a split at Golden State, and they play again tonight in Los Angeles. So the Lakers could go up 3-1.
They could. It'll be interesting. Golden State really has tried to put Anthony Davis on a kind of a tight walk defensively with that early ball screen action in possessions, and Davis really, outside the first 7 or 8 minutes of Game 3, kind of had it figured out. Did a great job.
He's doing well on that. So we've got a lot of stuff going on with the NBA. I mean, that's going to be going on until June. But let's spend some time talking about your guys over at Holy Cross. You guys have had a good little run since I left.
I don't know if those two things are.
But you've had some good players. Oh, I'm just teasing. But you've been over there now, 9 years, getting ready for 10, or 10 getting ready for 11?
10. Completed 10 seasons.
And the nice thing is that I've seen is you guys are averaging 18 wins a season, and you can't blame that on scheduling because you've got a 20-game conference schedule.
Yeah, we have a brutal league schedule. So, you can't – it's hard to, build in wins when 20 of your 28 are conference grinds.
Well, the one thing I've noticed, and for people around here, Holy Cross and IUSB as well are in the Chicagoland Conference. And people don't know who that is, but Olivet Nazarene's been basically the landmark for that here ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
And like St. X, Roosevelt, St. Francis, it's a lot of, obviously Chicago teams. Now, Trinity Christian is dropping sports. I'm getting my Trinities mixed
You're
up.
getting the Trinities
Trinity
mixed up.
International.
Trinity International is, yes.
Okay. And they're dropping all their sports.
Correct.
Now, is Cardinal Stritch doing the same thing?
Cardinal Stritch is closing.
Closing completely.
Yeah, the end of this spring semester will be the end of Cardinal Stritch.
And they were, what, 12, 15 years ago, they were national champs, weren't they?
11
years
yeah,
ago?
So they won the national championship in 2013.
Okay. And that's located in Milwaukee. So the conference stretches to Milwaukee, at least until this year. And then you've got to go clear over to the Quad Cities to play Judson, and where's St. Ambrose?
In the Quad Cities.
It's in the Quad City
Davenport.
too,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's, the conference it's a long, big conference. You've got, here in Indiana, you've got IUSB, you've got what? Calumet, St. Joe. But right now here, IUSB's been doing pretty well I think they won the conference tournament 3 of the last 4.
They've won. Yeah, they've really done well in the tournament. They've done well each year, but have really excelled in the tournament and have shown no signs of letting up. They return a really good player, South Bend kid that I'm sure people know, Dejon Barney. So they'll reload next year around him.
Well, before you were here, Tusculum, Division II. Now, where's Greenville, Tennessee?
It's an hour east of Knoxville.
Okay, so
So
you were in the Smokies.
Yeah, real close, not far from the North Carolina border.
Now, the coach there that was with you, did he just pass away? Who was the head? There's a connection there someplace.
Yeah, I worked for 2 separate coaches at Tusculum, Jim Boone first, and then Mike Jones. And unfortunately, Mike Jones recently passed.
That's what I saw. Yeah. And then prior to that, it was the connection. When you were at IU Southeast in New Albany, that's where my Antoine Banks stories come into the story.
Yeah, that's where I got to know
you and Antoine were down there, and Antoine's now at IUPUI, and they're trying to make that work down there. I've talked to him about how they were told they needed to keep players when they got in there, and now they're trying to make things work. And that, they've been through 2 years getting ready for a third. And you also had a chance. You coached a little college or high school too, Tipton and Eminence when you were back in the young days, right?
That long time ago.
Basically, so straight out of college, you went to Eminence.
I was fortunate. I graduated from Marion in 1996, and was fortunate enough to get a head high school job right out of college. I wanted to coach at the college level, so that's what my goal was all throughout. Mm-hmm. But upon graduation, I had an opportunity to either become the head coach at Eminence or take a grad assistant job at a school in Georgia. And I just thought the allure and the prestige of being a head high school coach was too much to bypass.
Sure. Well, this year you actually recruited. You had 2 good freshmen from the South Bend area, and that's been one of the things. When it seems like, basically because of academics, we couldn't get South Bend kids into school. You could get Penn, Marion. You've always seemed like you've had some Penn kids on the team, but this year, you got Tommy Snyder and Phil Robles both, and they did pretty well for me. Tell us a little bit about their season.
Oh, they were both outstanding. So Tommy, coming in as a true freshman from Adams, ended up being a first-team all-conference young man, honorable mention All-American, and someone that really from day one we kind of built around. We didn't know when we were recruiting him, obviously he was going to be so good so quick, but once we got into practice, that became apparent rapidly. And then Phil Robles, freshman by class, but redshirted a year at IPFW, or just PFW, I guess. Mm-hmm. Also really impacted our program right away. And so those are 2 really good kids to have back and to be able to build around. And we've had South Bend kids in the past. If you remember the name Carl Columbus, he was part of the first.
Right, I know Carl.
Jameer Washington we had for a stretch, who's also a Riley kid. There's really good basketball in South Bend and in this Northwest Indiana area, so we want to mine that as best we can.
And you had Bo Ludwig from Penn this year too for 4 years. I think he was honorable mention all conference this year, and some academic honors as well, I believe.
Yes, he's a tremendous student. So he was conference, all scholar team. He'll end up being an academic All-American when that gets announced later in the summer. So yeah, he really excelled in every facet. He unbelievable student, big time contributor for 4 years basketball wise, and then really represented the program well off the floor.
Well, and that's one of the things when you're over at Holy Cross is it's still part of Notre Dame, but yet your athletics and everything's completely different. People remember, Holy Cross and St. Mary's as part of the Notre Dame system. When I was growing up, all the girls went to St. Mary's, Notre Dame was all boys, and Holy Cross was the junior college.
Yeah.
And now they're all their own four-year schools on their own. Now, do kids at your school, do they take any classes at Notre Dame, like the upper level classes, or is everything self-contained there at Holy Cross?
Well, they can't, for the most part, we're self-contained. So we're each, Notre Dame, St. Mary's, Holy Cross, all share, connections, but we're also all, administratively our own separate entities.
Right.
Now, one of the benefits we have is students really, regardless of class, some freshmen, some upperclassmen, have the ability to take classes at Notre Dame. They have the ability to get on certain tracks that would guarantee them admission into graduate programs at Notre Dame. So there are many different layers academically that Holy Cross students can benefit from with that association.
Okay, that's where I was. People, have asked me questions about that too. And I said, I think if there, certain programs, they can go over on the main campus for a class, maybe a 300 level or 400 level class, whatever it might be. So we tried to get you in here last week, and you had some recruiting thing. Tell me some secrets or anything. How'd you do on recruiting last week?
Well, we're fortunate. We've just had not a flurry, but we've had 3 or 4 commitments here in the last week that haven't gone public yet, but we're really excited about.
Good.
Both a mix of incoming freshmen and transfers.
Well, and that was the next thing I linked to. Talked a little bit. Are transfers? Are there more now? Is the NIL and that Division I kids moving around right now? Are they coming to NAIA schools?
They are. They are. So the transfer portal, that's the cool thing that everybody likes to reference, is benefiting NAIA schools as well. One thing that hurts us institutionally with Holy Cross is a lot of those kids, though, due to the COVID year, want to graduate and then start a year at grad school. We don't have grad programs.
I see.
So we have still, tended to lean towards getting 4-year guys, incoming freshmen, as a preference. We're taking we've always taken transfers.
You're always taking
we're
the junior college kids.
Taking more this year, just to try to balance out our roster so we're not, so underclass heavy.
That makes total sense. I think I saw where one of the IU players is going to Indiana Wesleyan.
Yeah.
Which, obviously is a different conference, but it's people that you guys would have to compete with at the national level. How has the change from having a Division I and Division II schedule, I guess, at the NAIA level, has that affected, it hasn't affected scheduling, but how has that affected your recruiting?
We haven't really seen an impact on either scheduling or recruiting. I think what it did on a national scale is it moved the tournament from 32 teams to 64, and so the dynamics of the national tournament changed.
Okay.
We have, as far as scheduling, it hasn't really bothered us much, and then recruiting has been kind of the same regardless.
Makes sense. Well, hey, listen, John, let's finish up. One of the things I was going to mention too, Coach has got so much information. I've got 2,000 questions I could ask him off the air too, but some of them he don't want on the air. It's things he can't talk about. Here in the area, coaching changes. We saw that Mo Scott's going to Adams Girls.
Yes, he'll be the new Adams Girls coach pending board approval next week.
Mike Bauer is going from New Prairie's boys to Mishawaka Marion's girls.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Edwardsburg's
let me look.
Edwardsburg coach is coming to Concord.
Yeah, he's
to be the girls' coach.
Yep. Let me look up his name here for you
All
real
right.
quick.
Well,
I can do that.
I know that at Elkhart today.
Brandon Abel is his name.
Okay. Brandon Abel's going from
To
Edwardsburg to Concord for girls.
Yep.
I know Elkhart was going to make a decision and make an offer today. I was over there substitute teaching today. My wife found a job for me over the weekend, so I was over
Get you
there.
out of the house.
So I know Mike. What was interesting is Mike Drews, one of the former coaches. He was on the committee, which I thought was a good thing for Elkhart that they actually had a coach on the committee instead of a bunch of academics. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about. What do these schools do? I mean, things have changed for acquiring coaches too. What you can't just get a coach and say, hey, you got an extra prep anymore. I mean, there's some competition about whining and dining coaches as well too, especially at the in Indiana high school basketball. We've heard some rumors about people that have not necessarily turned the job down at Penn, but have pulled their name.
There were 4, now they're down to 2, and I have some inside folks there. So there were 4, but 2 have pulled out. The other 2 they're looking at.
Yes. So we some of that, I guess, is not for publication.
No, I know, but I'm not supposed to.
Yes,
say.
exactly. I saw down middle part of the state at Greensburg, Stacy Myers is going to become just the athletic director only. Saw that Sean Busick, somebody that we've been around for a long time, Sean Busick's going from, was at Zionsville, has been at Traders Point the last couple of years, is going to Greensburg. Ryan Sexton over at Lake Central said he'd been coaching college ball for a while, so he's going to Lake Central. One of our Hex buddies, Phil Washington, who was at once upon a time at Crispus Attucks, has been an assistant at Lawrence Central. He's got the Lawrence Central job, taking Al Goodham's place. Jeff Tigg played at Pike. Played in the NBA for a little bit. He's going back. He's the new Pike coach. Chris Byers is going back to Warren Central. He won a state championship. He was the last undefeated team.
State champion.
Yes, until this year. Lou LaFave, we mentioned, coming from North Harrison down on the river, coming up to Wawasee. And I saw just this morning that Eric Thompson from Peru is going to Huntington to take Craig Teagle's place.
Yes,
Teagle went down to New Albany to take Jimmy Shannon's spot. So
I'm just waiting to see where Pat King's going to land.
Pat King's going back to the couch, down to my basement to get my 3 TVs on, and I'm going to be with you next fall. So that's all I know. Well, let's close this up. Mike, thanks for coming in.
Thank you guys.
You were going to be here for a half hour and talk about your team for a half hour, and we ended up throwing you to blame this on Heck.
Yeah, Heck owes me one.
Blame this on Heck.
I hope he's feeling better.
Yeah, he's at Heck's, dealing with that, liver medicine from his liver, and it's just kind of, he said he gets vertigo every once in a while and just has to throw it in park and wait it out. We've all had vertigo once or twice, and it's definitely no fun. No. That's for sure. But we want to thank Bar Louie for having us.
Don't forget Burger Night tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
$5 Burger Night.
Yeah. So you can come, and Tuesday nights are packed. We're up on the 3rd floor today simply because somebody was on our spot downstairs.
And who knows where we'll be next week on Tuesday. We will be back with you next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday will be our last one.
Yes.
I think Thursday, Heck and I have planned with Scott. Scott will be back in town. We are working on getting Mike Etherington from Indianapolis. He was been a long-time friend of Heck's, and was at Lawrence North when the Conley Oden days, and was a coach at Pendleton for a while. And so we're going to get him on and talk a little bit, and we're going to Zoom with him on Thursday, and then we will be back here live for our last show before our summer break on Tuesday night of next week.
A couple of updates, just baseball and final have gone final. St. Joe beats Penn in softball 4-1. First time that St. Joe's beaten the Kingsmen since 2014 in softball.
Well, and
that's going to set up a possible regional matchup as well.
Let's see if they get that far. But you're right; that'll be a good tease for here in a couple weeks.
And St. Joe beats Penn in baseball.
Oh,
6-3.
I think that might be a little surprise.
That is a little bit of a surprise,
for us people that don't know much about it.
Well, you follow that,
I try to follow them. I follow the teams. I just don't know the names very well.
All right.
So, hey, thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.